Today I've got some easy techniques to use with your gelatos to build a page full of colour and texture. And I've started on a clean page in my Strathmore art journal for this one. And the first thing that I want to do is just build up some pattern, and I'm going to do that with some stamping. Now I've not planned any of this stamping out, I'm just going to go for it. And I can now overlay some of the stamps, but I'm also going to use a little bit of masking as well, especially where the stamps are quite busy and full of detail, like the crackle stamp or the wood grain stamp, for instance. And the stamping doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry too much about it. Now, if you saw my how to layer gelatos video, then you'll know that I quite like to use matte medium to seal in my gelato layers so that I can then work more gelatos over the top of them. Oh, and did you spot the different ways that I use gelatos in that video? I counted around 6. And if you want to see how I layered the gelatos and count the techniques for yourself, then I've linked that video at the end of this video and also in the description below. Well, I'm using matte medium again, but this time I'm going to use it as both a resist and as a seal. So to start off, I'm going to use it as a resist, and I'm putting the medium in a few areas where I've stamped. So just covering some of the stamped areas or covering some of the blank page in amongst the stamping. And I'm just picking the areas randomly, and we'll see what happens. Now you have to let the whole thing dry completely before moving on to the next layer. Great thing about watercolour crayons like these gelatos is that you can use them in just so many different ways, can't you? And I particularly like the immediacy of being able to scribble them out directly on a project, but it's also fun to add some water and pull and move that colour around. So I'm going to do a bit of both. This first layer of colour is going to be quite light, and you can make it darker if you want, but I'm going to work light and build up. Now I can remove some of the colour from places that I've put the matte medium down, and I'm just using a paper towel to do that. There's already enough water on this page to help me do this, but if you need to, you can always dampen your towel to wipe back the colour off of the matte medium. Now, as usual, I'm pushed for time, so I'm going to just do a quick buzz with the heat tool to speed things along and dry this page off. Okay, next layer. This layer is back with the matte medium, and I want to build up some more texture, so I'm going to use a stencil this time. And I've got all the products that I've used today underneath in the description as always, so just press that show more button or the triangle if you're on mobile to see them. Matte medium is quite liquidy, it's got a good flow to it, so when you use it with a stencil it will have a tendency to run underneath the stencil. Now I'm not particularly bothered by this, and I will show you why at the end of the video. Oh dear, I've been a bit of a messy pup, and some of the previous colour, I'm guessing from the stencil, has sneaked onto the medium on this page, so I'm just going to scrape it off and nobody will know. I think I want to add some more medium in places, so I'm just going to paint a bit on with a brush, and then I'll turn the brush over and use the other end of it to leave some more marks and texture, and we'll see how it'll look. Okay, so that needs to dry. Then once it has, I can come back in and add some more colour. And watch how when you scribble directly over the textured matte medium, it picks up that gelato colour really well. I mean, you could just do this, scribble the colour onto the matte medium texture and leave it. And that looks pretty cool, that's one way of doing it, but for this project I will add some more water and blend the colour out a little bit more because that's the look that I'm going for on this particular project. So I'm just adding more colour, and if I like I can take some of it back off again from that matte medium to reveal the layer underneath. But I want to go more intense, so I'm adding more colour and blending it out with the water. Then I'll dry it off a bit with the heat tool again. Now, if you have the time, it's a good idea to just let it dry naturally, because you quite often get some interesting blends and mixes if you can let it dry naturally. But time's not my friend today, so heat tool it is. It doesn't have to be completely dry to add my next layer of colour, but dry enough that the colour won't immediately mix when I add the new colour. And you can see how when I add water to the new colour, the matte resist is cleaned off and it's white in the places that I've just put it over the page, and it's blue in the places where I put it over the colour from that first layer. And it's a great look to play with. Let me know if you're enjoying the video and finding it useful by liking it. That would be wonderful, thank you. And I would love to hear if you have any plans for using your gelatos this week, so let me know in the comments. And if you aren't already a subscriber, then please do subscribe for more art tips, tutorials and inspiration, and hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss my next video. I think I have the level of colour where I want it, so a quick dry of the heat tool again before I go back in with a wet brush and some kitchen towel to wipe off the colour from some of that matte medium. Now I want to keep it quite varied, so I won't wipe it off all of the matte medium, but in some places, and we'll get different levels of contrast depending on what colours are underneath the medium. Some will be more subtle than others, but that's all part of the fun for this technique. Once I've done that, I will just sort out my focal point. Now, I hadn't really planned for a focal point on this project. I just thought I would share how to build up texture with different ways to use your matte medium as both a seal and a resist to get different looks. But then I thought this really looks like it wants a focal point. And as it's already got some of the Finnabair stamps on it, well, it wasn't a big leap to add one more, and I've reached for one of her lovely butterflies. And I'm stamping the butterfly out on the same journal paper, just a bit I've cut off, and I'm also going to heat emboss the sentiment in white on a black piece of cardstock. And I will add both of these to the page with some gel medium, but before I do that, I just want to add a little bit of dimension to the butterfly. I really like how the different coloured layers, the page itself and the bits of stamping all peek through at different points in the layering and add lots of variety, just by the way of using that matte medium to cover some bits up and to leave some bits uncovered and just add texture. It's a little bit like a time capsule of the building of this page as you seal bits of each layer in with a little bit of matte medium, then add more colour over the top, and then blend some of it and wipe some of it back to reveal what came before. It all just adds a really nice texture to play with. Now, did you spot that wonderful crackle texture? Now that's the bit that I mentioned before that I wanted to show you, where the medium flows underneath the stencil, then leaves a texture as you pull the stencil off. And it can really work for this type of project and with this type of colouring. Now I have some more watercolour video ideas here, so don't forget to go and watch those, and also watch that layering of gelatos video if you haven't seen it already, and count all the techniques that I use in it. Thanks so much for watching, have a creative few days, and I'll catch up with you again on Sunday.